Awesome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for all Illinois students. My name is Jen, and I'm going to go ahead and just give you a few introductions as we get started today and then hand it over to our panelists. So as we get started today, you'll notice that this is a webinar format. So you don't have your cameras or your microphones on, they're off today. And so you'll see the presenters as they are talking, but you will not see your peers that are on the call. So don't worry about looking for that mute or video off button as you're looking for things today. But with that comes the fact that we don't have the chat enabled. And so please submit your questions through the Q&A function and type your questions for the presenters at any time during this presentation, and they will go through those as they present. I'd also like to remind you that there's many more sessions for you to explore as well. You can go to IACAC.org to check out the schedule and register for more sessions, or if you'd like to explore any recordings for sessions that have already passed, you can also see those online at IACAC.org. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our awesome panelists today, and thank you so much. Take it away.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Nelson. I'm the Regional Recruitment Director for Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my fellow panelists have asked me to kick us off tonight. So we are here to help you with maybe the least exciting part, or the most feared part maybe, of your application, your college essay. Collectively, the five of us have probably read, maybe a couple 100,000 college essays over the course of our careers. And so we want to share with you tonight some tips, some tricks, the good, the bad, the ugly, kind of explain what we're looking for in each question, and then certainly give you some time to ask some questions. So let's get on with the show. Heather. I'm going to pass it on to Courtney to introduce herself because she is the next one to speak.
Hi guys, my name is Courtney Wallace. I'm the Director of Admissions at Augustana College. I actually live and work out of the Chicagoland area. So happy to be here tonight.
Hi everybody, my name is Megan O'Rourke. I'm the Associate Dean for Midwest Recruitment for Providence College, which is out in Providence, Rhode Island, but like Courtney and Julie as well, I am based in the Chicagoland area and work with students from the Midwest. Brian, I'll send it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Hodges. I'm the Senior Associate Director for Recruiting Outreach for the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I've been in admissions for a pretty long time, and like Julie said, we read a lot of essays. So.
And hi guys, I'm Heather Chase. I'm with Miami University, where I'm the Associate Director of Regional Enrollment. I've been with Miami for 9 years, so also plenty of essays.
So let's get this started. We thought it would be a great idea to give you some background information on what colleges are looking for when they're reading your essay. So why do colleges ask for an essay, and what it could possibly reveal about an applicant overall? So keep in mind that the college is already going to have a little bit of information about you, right? They're going to have your application with your demographic information. They're going to have your transcript, which will show you or show them what classes you've taken, your grade trends, your grades overall. They're going to have letters of recommendation if that's required of the application. They're going to have your list of activities or your resume. They might even have a counselor letter. So keep in mind exactly what's on the screen. You want to show them something else. Here's something that you might not know about me, something that might not have already come through on your application overall. So they're trying to get an idea of what your personality is like, how we might see you actually as a member of our community on campus, what it's like maybe to be like you, what it's like to live in your household or attend your high school, what your passions or interests are. And maybe, depending on the prompt, we might be trying to figure out how much you already know about our college or university. So again, really giving you a chance to tell us something that hasn't already been shared through the actual application for admission. It's certainly not to torture you, but to give you an extra opportunity to share something. So what we also know is that great essays have a couple more things, 3 things in particular. So the first thing would be a hook. You heard Julie and Brian specifically say how many essays we read in a year, over our career, and certainly even in a day. So you want to catch our attention from the beginning. And this is something that you're probably already used to coming up with, even in your English classes already. So catch our attention and make sure that we're excited to read your essay. The next thing is providing an into, a through, and beyond. And so this is a little bit different than maybe how you've written in the past. Your English classes, you've always written with a intro paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion paragraph. And so while this is similar, it's also a little bit different. And so really you just need to know this, the hook, of course, and then your into, through, and beyond. So the into, is taking the reader in a moment of time. And this moment should actually reveal or highlight a core quality that you're trying to communicate to the reader. The through, and of course this intro could be a couple sentences, it could be a paragraph, it could be a couple of paragraphs. The through is providing direct context to that into moment in time. And then the beyond is probably, I think, maybe the most powerful and the part that students rarely spend enough time on. So the beyond is, why does this matter? And why should it matter to me as the reader? You've been given 250 or 650 words. And so why have you chosen to spend those amount of words telling this story in particular? So to get back to the word count, another, to make a successful essay is, of course, to make sure that you're within your word limit. And so if you're given 250 to 650 words, making sure that you're over 250, but certainly less than 650. We want to make sure that you're beyond, sometimes the most powerful part, isn't cut off. And then lastly, making sure that you're answering the prompt or answering the question that you've been asked, because sometimes we see that doesn't always come through. I know Julie's next going to talk a little bit about essays versus personal statements. Julie?
Thank you, Courtney. So sometimes instead of having to write an essay, you're asked to write a personal statement. This is a little bit different. This is a lot more open-ended than an essay. It doesn't really have a specific question. This is a good example of what it would look like to be asked for a personal statement. Provide a 1 to 2 page essay on a subject that interests you. Tell us about an experience or a person who has influenced you, or explain your perspective on an issue about which you feel strongly. So that gives you a lot of latitude. It gives you a lot of space to say, you know, to really answer that question, or to ruminate on, here's something you might not know about me. And you can tell it by telling a story. You could also use a personal statement to talk about any circumstances that might have affected your grades, your performance, your attendance. You know, we know as admission folks that life happens. And so we want to be aware of these things so that we can review your file, you know, through that lens, through those parameters, and really give you the benefit of the doubt. I think the personal statement can be really powerful, you know, if you have a story that's a little bit unusual to tell. And that's just anything, honestly. There's another kind of personal statement, and that would be the academic personal statement. So if anybody's applying to Illinois State University, you probably already know they don't require an essay or a personal statement, but they do recommend that if you don't necessarily fit their academic profile, that you might want to submit their academic personal statement. And so this is a chance for you to explain a little bit more about your academics and why you think you're a good fit for that particular institution. So Illinois State University spells it out pretty well. Why do you think we're a good fit for you? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And then what happened in high school that maybe had an effect on your performance? This is not a place to start talking about, oh, the teacher was new, or, you know, I just, you know, you don't want to make excuses here. You definitely want to take ownership and show us what you have learned from having had those struggles. Again, we want to put you in your best light, and we want some assurance that you are not your sophomore year, that you absolutely have grown and changed and are ready to take on the challenge of college. So those are more personal statements. We're going to talk a little bit more about the essay questions.
You're going through the application process. Some of your schools are actually going to want to know, can you follow directions? And one of the ways they do that, depending on the school, will be the essay prompt. It's very important that you read what the school is asking you. What do they want to know about you? How are you going to express what they want to know? The essay question or example you see here might seem familiar to you. We're going to say it's from a school in Illinois and their colors are orange and blue. But one of the things that a school like Illinois wants to know is explain your interest in the major that you selected. Describe how you've done certain things to cultivate that interest in your major. Tell us about your future goals. Specifically answer the essay question, because again, schools that usually ask this is one of the few things that they're looking for. Obviously, you're applying directly to a major, so they're a direct admit program. They want to see if you're following directions. Can you actually answer what they're requesting of you? When you think about the essay, again, be very specific and answer their question. They're also going to have some limits depending on the school. They might have a 300 to 400 word essay. Again, be very specific and answer exactly what that school wants. Notice when you look at the essay, they're not asking you, tell us why you love the institution. They want to know exactly what they're asking. So if you're interested in bioengineering, if you're interested in computer science, if you're interested in economics, explain those interests. Now, we definitely understand, or schools understand, you might not know exactly what you might not want to go into. So you can talk about your other interests that may be cultivated, maybe a route you want to go with science or a route you want to go with math, and that's why you're thinking about a certain major. We understand you might not know exactly what you want to go into, but again, we do want you to answer the essay prompt. Every school will be different in how they will ask this question. Some will ask about certain activities you've done. Some will talk about their majors. Some will talk about their interests in general. But again, when you're applying to schools and they have a specific question when it comes to the essay, make sure you're answering that question.
Video. I'm so sorry, guys. Hi, this is Heather at Miami, and the next screen is mine, and reason being because Miami does use the Common Application. So I'm guessing many of you are using the Common Application for at least one or hopefully a few of your schools. And as you may have looked at or may have viewed so far online or actually in the Common App, there are 7 different questions on the Common App that you can choose from. I don't know about you, but sometimes open-ended questions or this many possibilities can be a bit overwhelming. You start thinking, well, I don't even know where to start. And I think sometimes the best way to start with this is to start thinking about a topic rather than look at the question and say, well, you know, how do I answer this? I think sometimes your best route is thinking, what's an experience or what's a time or a place or a thing that I can write about? And then look through these essay questions and say, okay, is that thing I'm talking about my background? Is it a lesson I learned? Is it a time that I, challenged something? Or is it a problem I solved? When you look through all of these questions on the Common App, I think the one main theme that you notice is the word you, the word that you are the center of all of these things. So you'll see a background or identity that's so meaningful to you, a lesson that you learned, a problem you've solved. So I would hesitate to go too deeply into the problem or the time that you questioned authority. Talk a lot about yourself in relation to the problem, or a lot about yourself in relation to how you challenged an idea. Going back to what Courtney talked about at the beginning of our presentation, going into, through, and beyond something. all the while keeping you at the center of the essay. Sometimes, and there used to be a question on this Common App list that they've since removed, sometimes we find that students talk so much about another person that was impactful to them, and that was the removed essay question. It was, tell us about another person and how they've impacted you. And what we found is that most people would spend the majority of the time talking about the other person and not about themselves. So, you know, keep in mind as you're answering, like look at number 6 there, a topic, an idea, or a concept that makes you lose all track of time. Of course, that's something that you're passionate about, but be careful not to write the entire essay about, if you're passionate about outer space, because we want to know how it relates to you and who you are in relation to that topic. One thing I'll also point out with Common App, number 7 is a pretty open-ended question, right? So if you've written something that is a personal statement, or is maybe something that you wrote as a personal statement for another institution, but you may not have mentioned that other institution in that personal statement, and perhaps, you know, you just talked about yourself and your experiences and you'd like to submit that, that's fine. As you're not, if you're not sending it to Miami and saying, I really want to go to UW-Madison, that's totally fine. You can send something you've written for another school and just make sure it is, you know, open enough that it applies to multiple schools. But that answers number 7. So you really can, you know, with number 7 being so open-ended, you really can use, you know, any topic or anything. You're not really tied to 1 through 6 as far as essay questions are concerned. So Common App is a little different. Also keep in mind that there is a 650 word limit, for Common App. So that's a lot, you know, that's a big essay. But at the same time, you know, I got an email from a student yesterday that said, I've written an essay for Miami, but it's 900 words. What should I do? And I said, cut it, you know, cut it down. You can't submit 900 words. It will literally cut you off at 650 words and we won't see the remaining 300. So it does have to hit that 650 word limit. The other thing I want to touch on quickly here is a couple of essays that we like to call wildcards. And these are really fun essays, but that are different than most. I'll click through them here so you can see one at a time. And as you're reading these and looking at these, tell me if any of these appeal to you. You know, if you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, that is so me. You know, University of Chicago is kind of notorious for these, that they have an uncommon application and uncommon essays. But when you're reading these essays, if you think, that's totally my jam, you know, then this might be, you know, the right fit for you academically. Now, if you look at the University of Chicago's Find X, and like me, it incites panic in you, you know, maybe that is a good indicator that even though you are a brilliant student, maybe the University of Chicago isn't the right fit for you. But keep in mind, as you're looking at all of these kind of quirky and different essays, they know they're quirky, they know they're different. And so I think they are looking for a creative answer. They are looking for a person that's thinking outside the box and thinking of creative ways to solve things. If you know, are nerdy in admissions like we are and you want a good time, you can always go back and Google the University of Chicago's previous essay questions. Every year, the University of Chicago has a contest where the freshman class is allowed to submit their suggestions for essay questions. And I think they pick 1 or 2 every year to include on the next year's application. So they get very creative, and they're one of a few schools that just think outside the box a little. So keep these in mind as you're going forward. And of course, think outside the box as you're answering them. Now I'm going to pass it along to Megan.
Thanks, Heather. So let's talk about a question that comes up pretty often. You'll see it every now and again. And I think students that we have all worked with kind of tend to struggle with answering this question. The why our school? Why Providence? Why Miami? Why Xavier? And I think there are different ways to answer this that are ultimately going to be effective. But I think you have to consider the ways in which to build your answer. Just like we've been talking about before, you know, you really want to take some time and be thoughtful in the ways in which you're presenting information in these essay responses. So I've worked for a handful of schools in my admissions career and have worked for a school that specifically asked this question. And I think it's important to understand that when we go in to review that essay, some of the things that we're looking for really tie back to what kind of research have you done about our school. I think it's really kind of uplifting and heartening to see a student that's really dug in and done their homework about the kinds of opportunities that are available to them at specific school, but then in addition to that, and more importantly, how that connects back to the ways in which they will kind of take advantage of those opportunities, and why those things are such a good fit, or why the institution then, because of these things, is a good fit for the student. One thing that comes up and is especially relevant right now is why our school, and people then talk about, when I went to visit said campus, and these are the things that I did, and the experience I had, and the tour that I took was awesome, and that's always great to see. But it's very possible that you might not get to go visit the school that you're interested in person. I work with students from across the Midwest, like I said, and there will be plenty of them that don't get to go out to Rhode Island before applying, and that's totally okay. I think one thing, as an institution, as the institution tonight that's the farthest away, I would love for you to know that that's not going to be a detriment to you, to not having had done an in-person visit. We all know, just like you all know, all of the things that COVID has prevented us from doing. And so I think addressing the ways in which you have done your research, and any kinds of opportunities that you've taken advantage of, that's really the thing to focus on then in this question, is to say, I did a virtual tour, I sat in on a virtual info session, maybe you had some kind of one-on-one with a professor via Zoom, or you were able to connect with your admission counselor. Those are the things that we will be looking for in this question, from students that are applying this fall, just given all of the things that have happened with COVID over the past, 6, 7, 8 months, forever long, right? So understand that research, but tying it back to you, like Heather mentioned, the you part of this is super important, and sharing with us as much as you can about the research that you've done will be helpful. One quick plug, we have a Q&A box. So if there's, something that you're wondering, something that we brought up that you're like, that doesn't make sense to me, or you want further clarification on or further information on, feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. But I am going to pass it along to Brian again, and he's going to walk us through some ways in which you all can brainstorm. So we really wanted to make sure that we could help you all out, maybe figure some things out in your mind about the best way to proceed. So Brian, take it away.
Okay, so you've heard several different ways that universities are going to look at the essay and how they're going to use that. Is it a personal statement? Is it an essay? Is it a specific essay prompt? Is it multiple questions that you can choose from? Is it why are you interested in our institution? We definitely understand this is probably not an easy thing to do, writing about yourself for the first time in a small amount of space. So even before you start thinking about going to reading the essay or start thinking about filling out the essay, we want you to relax, take a deep breath, and kind of start thinking about what your essay is going to be about. Start brainstorming a lot of different ideas. I want to take some pressure off of you. This is just one aspect of the application. We look at a lot of different things, so don't go overboard as far as what your essay needs to say, because again, it's part of the application. We look at a variety of different things. This is something that gives you an opportunity to tell a university about yourself, and you shouldn't be nervous about that because you're a great person. So you should be able to just relax and start thinking about ways that you can express what kind of a great person you are to the school, however they're trying to figure out and ask that question. So once you sat there and relaxed and started really thinking about brainstorming ways that you can get this information and put pen to pad or fingers to keyboard to talk about those different ways that you can brainstorm ideas to talk about the campus. And our next slide, we're going to talk about some things that hopefully can answer some questions for you. So you can start thinking about, okay, how can I even start writing this essay? How can I go forward in making this next step so I can start explaining how am I a great person for this campus? Why am I interested in a certain major? Why am I a good fit for this particular school? So it's, again, a variety of ways that you can go about doing this in writing your essay. First, you can reach out to parents, you can reach out to your uncles, reach out to your counselor, reach out to teachers. they're going to think of you in a different light than you could probably even think of yourself. So again, it's a great way for you to, okay, what is other people thinking about me? Your brother, your sister, your friends. How can the information you're hearing from them help you start your essay process? Again, think about the majors you're interested in. Think about the list of subjects you might be interested in. Maybe you're really interested in English, but you're not a big fan of math. Think about a lot of different ways that, again, you can start pulling out ideas to put that pen to pad. So again, we want you to really just relax when you're thinking about this, brainstorm a variety of ideas, because you're going to apply to multiple institutions, and they're all going to be different in how they ask those specific questions when it comes to the essay. So when you're thinking about writing that essay, think of a lot of different ideas. And actually, next slide came up. So here are
Hey,
some
Brian,
prompts.
can I jump in really quick? Sorry. There was
go
a
ahead.
great question in the Q&A, and it's very pertinent for right now. One of our participants said, is there a certain point where an essay can come off as a brag sheet instead of a personal essay? If so, how do you prevent that from happening?
Wow, that is a good question. And to be totally honest with you, this is your time to brag about yourself. I don't think you can be too braggy, because the essay, because we said this multiple times, is about you. We want to know about you in your own words. We want to know how you feel you are. So I don't see a way where you're too braggy. So this is your time. If any times there's time to brag, this is your time to brag. So again, think about some brainstorming tips. If you can't really get that essay off and running, start thinking about some questions you might be able to answer. Some of these are pretty funny, but some of these might actually help you start thinking about yourself in a different light. What are you terrible at, but love to do anyway? I'm horrible at golf, but I like to play golf. What's the best money have you ever spent? What is your actual superpower? I think mine is listening. My wife will probably think otherwise. What are you ready to let go of? What's a bad habit that you have? So again, you can use some of these. You can think of your own. Again, your counselor at your school might have some other questions that they might want to ask you. But again, start thinking about other questions, start brainstorming ideas, and you can find out a lot of information. There's a website that you'll see, collegeessayguide.com, that you can definitely use to again start those essay prompts, so you can again start getting ready to write that essay. It's going to benefit you the most.
Okay, I'm going to throw some more questions out from the Q&A. And this first one I'm going to send to Courtney, because she talked a little bit about the into, through, and beyond. So can you kind of go over that whole concept of into, through, and beyond? And certainly if any of my colleagues have, you know, some insight, please share.
Yes. So Julie, you always do a great job about talking about putting students in a moment and using a magnifying glass or a spotlight versus a floodlight. And so, for example, many of you might think that we read lots of essays about lots of different topics, right? Mission trips are one. I didn't make the team or make the cut for a certain fine arts ensemble, or maybe you were hurt in a sporting event, etc. What we're trying to make sure is that the moment that you put us in, or the information that you're sharing is so unique to you that I will never read another essay just like it. It's okay to write about those topics that are common, but you have to make it so specific to you. So, for example, all of us are a part of this like essay writing workshop, and we read an essay one year that was about a mission trip, and it wasn't your typical mission trip essay, which is why it made it so successful. But instead, the student put us in a moment with in a relationship between the student and one of the kids that was in the country, and how the student was so touched by his interactions with the student, he ended up leaving his shoes for this kid in the country. And so again, it wasn't about the travel log. It wasn't about how he had to get up early in the morning. It wasn't about how maybe he had to do hard work, but it was about this relationship that was so touching to him that he ended up leaving his shoes there. I hope that was helpful, and colleagues, feel free to jump in with your comments.
We've got some good questions, Courtney, so that I think that was awesome. So Julie, this one's for you. What is the strangest wild card question you've ever heard?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, we've seen some good ones, but what do you think is like the best wild card?
Yeah. Really, the ones that we have on the screen, those are some of my absolute favorites. I think, you know, those wild cards, they're usually provided by schools that maybe are a little bit more selective. And so they are really looking for you to stretch not only your writing ability, but also just kind of to put yourself in the headspace of that school. So I'm always going to be partial to Find X because, well, I work at Xavier, so I can tell you where X is. It's in Cincinnati, Ohio. But I love, you know, that last one, that Chapman, that's actually my new favorite, is what song should I be listening to when I listen to your application? Because I think everybody probably has an answer to that, and it's so personal. But if you're looking for like way out there wild, all you have to do is Google like unusual college essay questions, and you will get pages and pages, and, you know, pop some popcorn and just laugh while you read them. I don't
Where's Waldo is one of my favorite ones too, from
Yes.
Chicago. And really, University of Chicago always has some great ones, and they're really trying to figure out how you think. There's no right or wrong answer.
Right. They have one too that's like, if cereal is soup and a hot dog is a sandwich, then is a blank, and you have to fill in the two blanks. Again, not the way I think, but clearly.
I love that one. That's so fun.
Yep.
I don't know if I could come up with a good answer, but I do appreciate that one. Heather, you kind of touched on this, but there's a question about what if you come up with a creative idea, but it doesn't exactly match with the personal statement prompt?
Got it. Okay. So I think the personal statement, and you guys that read personal statements regularly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the personal statement is kind of looking for, give me a little microscope into you, right? Give me a little spotlight into you and who you are. And likewise, that seventh question of the Common App is also kind of open-ended and would allow you to give a little microscope into who you are. I know Brian talked about answering the question, and I couldn't agree more with that. So this kind of contradicts that, right? Because then we go into the Common App questions, and we're kind of like, anything can work for these, you know. So it's a little bit contradictory. But I don't think there's any wrong topic. I really don't think that there's, you know, people always, all of us get questions. What should I not write about? That's always the question when we're in an essay workshop. What topics are off limits? And dare I say, I don't think there's a topic that's off limits. I think it's how you would approach the topic, right? We've all read essays where students have written about poor decision-making for lack of, I don't want to go into too much detail, but, you know, where students made a bad decision or challenged someone incorrectly, and like just the approach to it was wrong. But I think it's all about how you approach a topic, right? I don't necessarily think that you could have a bad topic. It's more about that you could have the wrong approach to it. There's always going to be a lesson that you're taking away from any topic. And that's, I think, that beyond that we want to hear about that Courtney was mentioning earlier, the lesson, that what you took away from it is so important. And really remembering that if you have a topic, great, but how does that topic work for you? What did you learn from that? What did you take away with it? Just keep pushing yourself as to why was this relevant and important to you? I hope they answered that, Megan.
Yeah. Now, Brian, we have a question about, can I write about a hard time in my life and how I overcame it? What's your thoughts on that?
I would say you definitely can. And again, it's going to depend on the school you're applying to. Like I'll talk about my school, for instance. That essay prompt is why I said answer the essay prompt. But if that hardship or that trial, tribulation that you overcame pointed you in a direction to answer that question, you can definitely use that. We've had a lot of students, I guess I'm talking about my school specifically, that might use that personal situation that pushed them to the health service or healthcare, or into business, or into a science field, or into engineering. So you definitely can use the different aspects of your life and answer that question. And you can probably use it for any of those different essay prompts, but you make sure you're gearing towards how you answer that question. So yes, you could definitely use your life experiences and talk about why you're choosing a certain major, because that's definitely a part of answering that question.
Can I say something real quick, Meg?
Go
So,
for it.
I think some students might choose to write about like a traumatic thing that they overcame, but they also might, and that's great, but they also might not want to write about that, but they want the admissions office to know about it anyway. And so that's really when either that academic personal statement comes into play or the personal statement comes into play. Because if you want to really just be more factual about said situation, that's a great way to incorporate both. It also might mean that you ask your school counselor to include that in a letter too, if you don't want to write about it.
Keep in mind too, on the Common App, there is an area to include that. So after the essay section of the Common App, and I know there's also a COVID section now of the Common App, so this might be before or after that. I'm not sure how they're organized this year, but there is a question that says, is there anything additional that you want to share with us? That's where you can put that kind of thing, that factual, you know, maybe you had mono and missed some school. Maybe you missed school for any number of reasons, you know, medical or otherwise. But something that, you know, you don't want to spend your whole essay talking about that, but you'd like us to know that. I'd say 90% of applicants don't have anything in that spot, and that's fine. You know, if you have a extenuating circumstance, you probably know who you are. And if you're sitting here racking your brain, like, what's my extenuating circumstance? You probably don't have one, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do, you don't have to write your whole essay about it. You can include that in that additional information section of the Common App. It's a similar like open text field. You can write a paragraph. And to be honest, write a paragraph and insert that in every college application. You know, you don't have to write a separate paragraph every time. Just put together a good solid paragraph. You can plop it into Common App. You can plop it into anyone else's individual apps. And then you're kind of explaining yourself for every school.
Julie, we've got, we had a couple of questions that were pertaining to the weight of the essay in terms of the application process. So one question dealt more with like, how much is this going to be like the thing that gets you in or not? And then the other one was just talking more generally about, okay, like, how do you look at all of the different pieces of the application? How does the essay fit into that? So if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Oh, for sure. So again, it's going to vary from school to school. And one of the things that we all want you to know, and this is why we have all of our contact information up on the screen right now, is that no matter what schools you're considering, no matter what places you're applying to, there are people like the 5 of us at those schools waiting to help you. And especially now in the time of COVID, when you are a little more distanced, both physically and, you know, all kinds of ways from your support network at school, we can kind of guide you through this. So that said, I've worked mainly at private institutions, and I would say the first thing that I look at when I read applications is your transcript, because my biggest goal is to make sure that you're going to be successful in the classroom at Xavier, or at any school I've worked at. I want you to come, I want you to succeed, I want you to graduate, I want you to have a great life. So I'm not going to put you in a situation where you're gonna be over your head academically. So that's number one. Obviously with COVID, lots of schools are dropping those test requirements. So that is maybe a non-issue for a lot of you this year as you go through. But again, it's minor compared to what's in your transcript, what kinds of classes you've taken, how you've challenged yourself, how you've prepared yourself specifically for a major. Before I worked at Xavier, I worked at Bradley. And when we were reviewing engineering applications, we really honed in on those math and science scores. What the essay can tell us though, and I always look at the application kind of in 2 halves. You've got the quantitative half. So that's your transcript, that's the test score if you need it. Even things like letters of recommendation and your list of activities, that's all factual stuff. The essay is the one part where you can be qualitative. And for all of us, I mean, when we read applications, we probably read like 50 a day. And so when we open up those applications and start to get to know you, the essay is giving us a little peek into who are you going to be when you get to my campus? And do you sound like the students who are already there, or do you not? And you're going to bring something really cool and different to, you know, to school. I would say the other thing is we want to make sure you have some writing skills, because I don't care where you go to school, you're going to have to write a lot. And so we want you to have those kind of, you know, that baseline of, I can tell you a story in a word count and get my point across. So has anybody ever not gotten in specifically because of the essay? Probably not. I mean, I've had a couple of students where I had to put them in the let's talk about the student in committee pile because they did write about making poor choices. We'll say that. But, you know, for the most part, that essay is just already underscoring what I've already gleaned about you from everything else in the application.
Now, Julie, you're such an admission pro because you totally nailed one of the questions that was asked that you didn't even know was asked about the quality of writing. So hopefully for the student that asked the question about quality of writing, Julie's answer gives a little bit of insight into how we're weighing all of the parts of the essay.
And I would say too, make it sound like you.
Yes.
You know, if you are somebody that uses $6, you know, words all the time, use them. But if you're like, you know what, I write well, but I'm going to write it with a little less formal tone so that it sounds like me, that's absolutely fine too. You know, we understand that not everybody's got a vocabulary to beat the band, and we don't expect that, but we expect you to sound like you all the way across your application.
This is why we sometimes discourage your mom and dad from editing, because your mom and dad sound like your mom and dad, and then you sound like you. And it's usually pretty clear to us when we're reading an essay if it's been edited by someone of an older generation. We can usually tell that the 18-year-old has been taken out, and we like the 18-year-old to leave that part in.
Now, Courtney, we've gotten a couple of questions about the like why us school question. Can you talk a little bit about, proportionally speaking, like how much should you be talking about the school versus how much should you be like injecting the you part of it into that essay?
Meg, I'll have you check me on this one because I've never worked for a school that has a why us, but if I were to be giving general advice, I would say probably 75% about you as an applicant and 25% about the school, like specifically and like naming things. But again, the goal is for the reader to learn more about you. And so the more you can connect yourself with the school and why you're interested in going there is going to go a long way. And Megan, please check me on that.
No, I think you're totally right. I think this one, you could even get a little closer to like 60-40 and that would be okay. You to school research. And there's a question that kind of ties into this about like how personal can you go? We want you to go personal. So regardless of whether or not you're answering this question or one of the Common App questions, we want you to go personal. The point of this is for us to review and learn more about you. Now, I've got one good question for the rest of us. For those of you that have asked a question that we're not getting to, we will follow up with you after this. So if you have something you're wondering, pop it into the Q&A. We will get to those after we finish. Brian, I wonder quickly about, you know, in terms of the writing and personal of the connection back to your school specifically, like, do you want to see that 60-40 balance? The Illinois questions may be a little bit different in terms of the academic part, but would you say that 75-25, 60-40 is a good place to be?
I would say 60-40 is a good place to be. We
Cool.
do want you to answer the essay, but as much as you can put yourself in that essay prompt, we would definitely want to see that.
Now, we're going to end on this one last question because we've just got a minute left. What is the most memorable essay you've read in your career? So keep it snappy, keep it short. We've only got a minute. Any ones that come to mind? I've stumped them all, ladies and gentlemen.
Julie, I think you should tell your Rally Cap one.
Yeah, so there was a girl whose dad passed away. And so instead of writing the, oh, my dad died, she framed it in that they were both baseball fans. And so he taught her the superstition of the rally cap. And when you're down, you turn your head inside out and you wear it backwards to help the team rally. And so it really was about hope. It was about her maturity. It was about this awesome love that she and her dad shared. And it was so, and I called her and I said, hey, I do essay workshops. Can I share your essay? And she said, was it that good? And I was like, oh my gosh, I was crying. I laughed, I cried. It was better than cats. Like, it was so good. So again, and somebody else asked about, what if it seems like we don't have a big enough story? Your story is big enough. Like, even if you want to tell me about, this is why, going to Dairy Queen with my family on Saturday nights is our thing. That doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's a big deal to you. And if you write it like you love it, it's a big deal to us.
That's a perfect way to end. That's a perfect way to end. So we have a few questions. We will follow up with an email later on. So for those of you that are wondering, we will get back to you. But Jen, I'm going to let you take it away from us to end tonight.
Well, thank you all so much. What an amazing presentation. Thank you everyone for hopping on as well and joining and listening to this great information. Just want to give you a few little tidbits of information before we wrap up today. There will be a quick survey after you close this window. It's 4 questions. Please participate in that if you've got some time. It provides really valuable feedback for presenters going forward, and so that you can get the best information in the future as well. Once again, reminder, sign up for more sessions. I hope that this gave you a little bit of a taste of all the awesome topics that you can learn about. You can visit IACAC.org to register for those sessions. And once again, another reminder that the recordings will be available even of this session. So if you want to go back again and watch this and learn a little bit more, please feel free to go do that at IACAC.org. But thank you so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.